Everyone wants to be the best. Build the best product, create the best brand, publish the best content. But is that even the right goal? And what does being the best actually mean? My guest today is Jay Acunzo, author, keynote speaker, and one of the world's leading experts on messaging and storytelling. And he has a pretty contrarian take. Stop trying to be the best and become their favorite instead. But that doesn't sound immediately obvious, does it? In fact, it only raises more questions. How do you actually stand out as a brand? How do you develop a compelling brand message? How do you create truly original content? And how do you know when your content actually resonates with people? If you've seen my interviews, you know I don't go easy on my guests, and Jay was not an exception. But he was a good sport and handled all my tricky questions super well. I learned a lot from this episode, and I'm sure you will too. So let's get into it, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the show.
Ahrefs Podcast.
Hey Jay, welcome to Ahrefs Podcast.
Thank you, Tim. I'm ready to fight. I got my fists up. I know you debate every guest you have. I think you only invite on people so that you can just make them feel bad, right? That's the bent of it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really excited to do this.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm hoping that there would be a good debate and people would be entertained and they would learn something out of it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The topic of this episode is essentially your keynote, your main idea, which goes like this: don't market more, matter more, which I found very interesting because I was listening to some of your past interviews. And yeah, why don't you just give a quick synopsis of the idea? What do you mean by saying don't market more, matter more?
Well, isn't that the point of the marketing we do? We want it to matter. I came out of the tech world, mostly head of content at different companies, including HubSpot. And there was a moment in time where it felt like merely sharing expertise online mattered to an audience. And now you watch as both real experts and pretenders are flooding the internet with more advice content. And then here comes AI, which can replicate that quickly. Like generic advice and giving out basic advice through your content has now been totally commodified. So it's hard to stand out. It's hard to charge a premium for what you do. There's really nothing discernible about it. It's like, I can get that anywhere, and I guess you're anywhere. And so what you're seeing now is this moment in time where people are starting to bifurcate in the way they market. Either they go deeper into sharing this generic advice, but then they sensationalize it. They use opening hooks on their social posts that overpromise and underdeliver. They create yet more content at greater scale. They use tools to take one piece of content and separate it into 20 tinier pieces of content. Meanwhile, the original was pretty mediocre. So there's the hamster wheel approach. And some people are looking to put on a jetpack on the hamster wheel. But my question is okay, instead of running faster, hyping harder, what if you could resonate deeper? Instead of shouting into the storm, what if you could whisper? What could you say with such intentionality and clarity and repeatability that you don't need the volume game, that you could just merely whisper it and people would remember it? I would much rather get in front of my audience in a way that was influential than fleeting. And so what I see from most people is they're obsessed with reach when what they ought to be obsessed with is resonance, because resonance is how much people care, and no amount of reach guarantees that they care. So although you said my idea is don't market more, matter more, that's actually a piece of my message that I have to use to meet people, because that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about their marketing. And if I leapt out of the gate and said, think resonance over reach, people might go, well, but I do want reach. And I'm like, yes, I understand that, but we have to prioritize our focus here. I say put resonance over reach, not reach doesn't matter.
Jay, sorry, I have to interrupt you. I have to interrupt you because I know you have an entire keynote about this.
Yeah.
What
you did, Tim, is you slid a soapbox under me and you were like, stand on that soapbox. So I did.
So basically, I want to get into some specifics because when you're saying resonate, this is a very general term. What does it mean to resonate? Do I resonate? Does Ahrefs resonate? You say matter more. What does it mean to matter more? Do I matter more? Does my brand matter more? Can you give me examples of brands or messages that resonate, brands and messages that matter more? And maybe examples, how do you know that you don't resonate and you don't matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. Tim, give me an example of a moment or a person. So an experience you had or an individual you like to follow that you feel resonates with you, right? So like it could be a project they did, it could be an experience you had with a friend or a family member, or a coworker, or it could be an individual. Give me an example of that individual or brand or moment.
Jay, this is me interviewing you. I ask you a question, you're asking me a question back.
Oh, so you can dish it out, but you can't take it. I see. So to the listeners of this show, we're already deep within it. You see how this is, folks. I'm here to report live from the Ahrefs podcast. This goes one direction. No, so in order to answer that question, you have to personalize it. And so my point is, like, there is no universal. For something can resonate, it's not binary. One person, one moment, one brand, one project could be wildly resonant with somebody else and not you. And so, for example, one of the things I love most about storytellers is when they wade into the gray area and they make no sense. It's like, I thought the message was this, but now you're showing me a moment in a documentary where you're conflicting the message. So the best storyteller ever to do that, in my mind, was Anthony Bourdain. Now, a lot of people do love Bourdain, millions upon millions of people. But somebody else might come along and say, well, I think the best storyteller, Jay, is not Bourdain. And you said he was the best storyteller. No, I take umbrage with that. Here's the best storyteller in the world. It's, I don't know, pick a person, right? In marketing, you could say, like, I think Jay is the best storyteller. I think Mark Schaefer is the best. I think Ann Handley is the best storyteller. We use the word best as if there's like some objective or academic correct pick. Right? Like what's the best Disney film of all time? We will debate that as if there's a real answer, and there's not. So it's always profoundly personal. And so to resonate is to create a message or a moment that aligns so deeply and personally with somebody that they feel amplified. That's how you define resonance. It's the energy to act. Like, this isn't something I invented. This is from the sciences. Two frequencies align. They're considered resonant frequencies, and they actually amplify each other. So we all want action for our brands, but we often don't think about, well, how do I use a message, a moment, an experience, a way of communicating with my audience to impart first the energy so they care about my message or moment enough to want to act. So that definition, again, just so your listeners have it, it's the energy to act that people experience when your message or moments align so closely with them that they feel amplified. So it's profoundly personal.
That's still very general to me. I like your argument, which I made a note of your quote. Forget being the best, be their favorite. Favorite, which is what you just said, which is what you have a great example with the Disney movie. You actually just published a talk on your YouTube channel about how to be a better speaker. Yeah. I love the talk, by the way. Amazing. We'll include it in the show notes. I think every speaker should watch it. It's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Forget being the best, be their favorite. I get the argument because everyone has different favorite things. You cannot be best for everyone.
Sure.
But again, favorite, resonance matters. What are my signals? How do I know that I matter? Like, what do I need to look for? Because I would make an argument that if I make a post on LinkedIn and they get 1,000 likes, I matter. I resonate. It's like, it's in the nature of social networks. They reward resonance. And you say, resonance over reach, but I would make an argument that resonance breeds reach. This is how social networks work. If people, again, you're talking about action. If people take action, if people leave a comment, if people reshare your thing, if people like it, algorithms boost it and you get more reach. So I would say that if I'm getting traction on LinkedIn, I matter.
I don't know if that's true, because I know plenty of people who have like 100,000 followers by posting like copywriting hacks on LinkedIn. They have a lot of followers, but they have no influence at all. Like, no executive is going to take them seriously and encourage their team to like buy their educational products or service, or if they sell like a software product, right? So like, I think followers and like pure social media defined reach has never been further from what we actually want, which are things like impact and influence and, depth of connection and memorability. And I agree, these are general terms, but you can get specific in how you measure them. And I can give you some specific examples too, but start with the measurement piece. You can buy reach, but to understand if you're resonating, you have to look at what can only be earned. So one of the ways that I've tried to help clients crack that code is to categorize the different types of responses that you can get from a speech, a podcast episode, really anything you put in front of an audience. I call it URR, Unsolicited Response Rate. So if I get a bunch of people saying, "That was great, Tim, love the podcast," that feels great.
Yeah.
But if I get a bunch of people responding in my inbox, saying in paragraphs how much they love the podcast, clearly, I think we can agree that those responses are not the same as somebody saying a 2-line response on LinkedIn. They're in your inbox, right? So that got me thinking, well, could you actually start to find signal in the types of responses to know, okay, you've been exploring this potential message for your brand or story for your platform or whatever. How do you know whether or not that's the message, story, quote even to pursue further? Look at the depth of resonance. Okay, what does that mean? Look at the unsolicited response rate. Without asking for a response, do my ideas compel a response? That's the first hurdle. I'm not going to say comment want and I'll send you my guide. I'm also not going to say reply to my email and I'd love to hear from you. I'm just going to put my idea in front of my ideal audience and go, is this strong enough? It's like being a stand-up comedian, right? They're not like, now you laugh. No, they put the joke on the stage and then they hope that they trigger a laugh. If they don't, they have work to do. If they do, they're going to polish it a little bit and put it everywhere, put it in the special, etc. So on LinkedIn, I question whether or not impressions and likes and followers matter. You get some points, let's say, for that, but I'd much rather have people in my inbox saying, Jay, I saw you speak, and that story you told reminded me of a story in my life. And I think the way you score this, Tim, is really simple. It's how much time and how much of their reputation did they have to invest to respond to you? So yes, who are they matters, but also, are they doing something that caused them to go out of their way? There was friction in them responding. Because I'm trying to get to the highest friction thing of all, which is they purchase something, right? And so that's why I think there's a lot of vanity metrics that, yeah, they reward reach and also maybe look like resonance. But I don't know, I'd rather have a straighter funnel. I'd rather have influence. And if I need to expand the top of the funnel, if I need to have followers, so be it. But that is not the game I'm playing.
I like your example with people who post, inspirational quotes or just generic advice, and they get tons of engagement and tons of LinkedIn followers. But yeah, as you're saying, do people kind of have a respect for the person who is doing this? Yeah. Or are they in just this resonates with me, I'll click like without kind of connecting it to a person, without connecting it to a brand. So the way I understand it, the difference between, again, I would think that I'm not that. Some of my LinkedIn posts perform well, my audience is growing. And the difference between me and someone who's posting inspirational quotes is that I'm kind of tying it back to kind of my marketing philosophy, things that we stand for at Hrefs. Right. So it's all under the umbrella, this is what we believe in. And you can almost tie most of my messages to that. While for a person who posts, inspirational quotes or bits they saw from a podcast or something, or they comment on some viral things. Yes. Sydney Sweeney was doing that ad, my jeans are great or something. And that if you comment on it, you would get some response because this is a hot thing.
Yeah, it's to what end do we want attention? To what end do we want? And I'm running a business. So there's a commercial reason for all of this, right? And so I want to know that whatever I'm saying in the world is earning me such affinity with that audience that trust can turn into action. Because if I can't get someone to take an action, I can't generate any revenue. It doesn't matter what the business model is, right? And so to me, you could be an artist, you could be a cold-hearted capitalist, you could be somewhere in the middle. The game is, can you resonate? Or to condense it down to an oversimplification, but we can unpack this. The job of any communication, and it could be internally, externally, big crowd, one person, doesn't matter. The person receiving your communication, they're wondering or they're desiring the same thing. It's make me care. And it's I can get in front of people. That's easy. But if you can't make someone care on the receiving end of your communication, then what good is your awareness? What good is your visibility? Like I have a ton of people that I'm very aware of in marketing, and I do not care about their message. I will never buy from them, right? And or they have this big aura around them. So I'm like, oh, I'm vaguely aware of them. So I think we've been chasing the wrong thing for a while, Tim, which is all these vanity metrics or even decent metrics or decent outcomes for your marketing, like you drive traffic to the website or you have some followers. And I'm like, okay, but what about the velocity to sale? Like, how do we get that? How do I get the executive at a brand to care about me, not the, 100 people who report to him, which looks better in an analytics tool because there's 100 of them. But if that executive is my biggest fan, I'll get the sale, or the sale will happen more quickly.
Thank you for bringing the conversation to sale, because I literally have a note, resonance or sales. Because when talking about resonance, you gave an example that one kind of compelling or quote unquote high stakes action that people might take is this unsolicited feedback when they would message you and say something. But ultimately, when you're in business, you want sales. And I loved how you said on another podcast interview that when you went from working in-house at a larger business to working for yourself, you like going solo allowed you to stop cosplaying business.
Did I say that? Really? That sounds like something I would say in my snarkier days. Yeah,
I guess you understood
cosplaying
that
business happens a lot.
I guess you understood that putting out all this content doesn't make sense if I don't get customers. So I can be like the biggest someone on LinkedIn. I can have lots of people subscribe to my email list. But I need to put food on the table of my family. And if I'm not able to sell anything to these people, if these people are not willing to put their money to kind of support me with my ideas and whatever products I'm giving them, what's the point of it all? So sales, again, here at Ahrefs, our approach to creating content that generates sales is very, very simple. We have this internal metric called business potential score. And basically every topic that we want to write about or every article that we publish, we grade from 0 to 3 based on how likely is it that a person, after reading this article, they would buy our product, or how critical is our product to solving the problem that we're describing. So for example, if someone is reading an article, how do I know who is linking to my competitors? Which websites have links to my competitors? This is a business potential of 3 for us, because there's no way to know who's linking to your competitors without using a tool like Ahrefs. But if someone is looking, how do I get traffic to my website? There's a million ways to do it. And Ahrefs and SEO is just one of them. So the business potential is maybe 1. We can pitch ourselves, but the likelihood that the person is going to buy is not that. But this is very, I would call it mechanical, for a lack of the better word. While you're talking about stories and about making people care, our business potential is a very kind of sales oriented. Do you have a problem? Is our product critical to solving your problem? Then we have a match. But what is it like? There's more to it than that. This is not, you're not becoming their favorite tool or their favorite brand by describing how to solve the problem with your product. So
why not? Wait, why not?
You do?
I'm not a believer that there's like creative marketing and then like direct response or product marketing, right? Like no matter what you're doing, the better communicator in that function, or better connector, better, in your case, like I'm going to agitate the pain. I'm going to put my finger on the problem. Like I'm going to make sure, we get you. Again, you feel seen, right? And it's just like the person you're speaking to is just at a different stage than, say, like when you go give a keynote at a conference, Tim, and you're in the educator or education mode or the storyteller mode, right? And I hesitate to say storyteller educator because you're doing that all along the buyer's journey. But like if you're speaking to somebody at the last mile of the race, you should learn how to connect with that person very deeply so they feel very seen and they prefer you over a competitor. If you're connected with somebody who's just sort of entering the race, they're entering the buyer's journey, they're just now thinking about some topic that's several degrees removed from a point of sale, you should also be able to communicate with them. And, at HubSpot, when I was head of content there, we were really wedded to this like last mile content marketing, which was basically like, if you need to solve this problem, you search a how-to. The how-to resembles a functionality in our product. We're going to educate you in the blog post. You'll fill out a form to get the ebook at the bottom. Now you're a lead, and hopefully a qualified lead. And what people didn't really latch onto, and HubSpot didn't really promote this, that I found true of like keynote speakers and authors, they think about this more consciously, and I think brands should too, is the reason that worked for HubSpot wasn't just that they were louder or even better writers or any of that. It was that they had a distinct premise. They had like something to say throughout all this content. So when they wrote how to drive leads from social media to your website, and then a competitor wrote the same thing, the HubSpot article was like colored by a really distinct point of view that you should stop interrupting your audience through advertising and try to attract them. So they always had one distinct point of view coloring everything. And I think a lot of people mistook that as, so we publish a lot of generic content that addresses buyer needs and pain, and then good stuff happens. And I'm like, yes, if nobody else you're competing with is doing the same exact thing, I guess that can work. But now that's over, that is dead. You need a distinct premise, a point of view, and learn how to color every stage of the buyer's journey, because you're not your competitors. In other words, if I removed your brand and white labeled it, I'd still want to go, oh, that's got to be Tim, right? Or, oh, wait, hold on. That doesn't sound like the 70 other blog posts that said the same thing in the subject line or the headline. That sounds like something I need instead. I prefer that. So like a lot of people are like, well, I look and sound like everybody else out there, so I have to outspend my competition, or I have to race harder, hype harder, optimize more. I've got to do the exhausting, like dig a hole in dry sand type of marketing, which is all brute force and effort based, and very few things compound. And I'm like, but the source of your communication power is one idea that you can kind of codify into a distinct premise and use that to update your messaging, your content at any stage. It doesn't matter if it's like right about to buy or 6 months from buying or whatever. Like, can you differentiate from others in your space? Because you all talk about the same topics. So how do you see your topic? Is that clear? And I don't think marketers have been really thinking about that. They've just been thinking about like, well, I got a bunch of keywords and I got to optimize for those keywords. And I'm like, now all your competitors are doing the same thing. So what else? What else you got? Show me how you see it. Why would I care about you when all your competitors are talking about the same damn topics?
This is exactly why I said that our approach with business potential is quite mechanical, because like you said, you find a keyword or rather a problem that people are searching for actively. You know, like they have this pain, and you write an article, you or a video or whatever to address this pain, and you showcase your product, which helps to solve this pain, and essentially you got a sale.
Show
your
don't tell
metaphor,
is the phrase, right? Show don't tell. That's like a storytelling phrase. That's what you're doing. It's storytelling.
Yeah. You also have this metaphor of running a race where someone is running, I don't know, 50 miles, and you want to meet them at the very end. So yeah, if the business potential is 3, then people are like at the very verge of buying something. They know they have this problem. They vaguely know how to solve it, and you just want to sell to them. And your point is that you have to be supporting your potential customers throughout the race from the very beginning. And this is basically, every stage of the buying journey, tofu, mofu, bofu, top of the funnel content, middle of the funnel. It's all kind of the same stuff. So it's kind of, you want to start giving, you want to start helping and educating your potential customers from the very beginning of their journey. But so can your competitors. If you're starting from just vaguely describing it's what, problem unaware, problem aware, solution aware, most aware, which is also like another take on tofu, mofu, bofu. But essentially everyone can copy that. So what I'm interested in is how do you find this unique voice? What is it?
Yeah, great question.
Let me give you, let me kind of throw you a softball in a way, because another thing you said, you want to create creators rather than create content. So the avenue I wanted to explore with you is the distinct brand voice and your kind of unique take, is it the people that you have? Because we all know people want to hear from people buy from people, not brands. So can you have this unique perspective, those unique stories, if articles on your blog, for example, don't even have an author box? You don't know who wrote it. Hrefs wrote it, not Tim, not like Ryan from our team or someone, but this is Hrefs. Or do you need people to have this resonance?
Yeah, so those I have talked about that. Let me parse those, because I don't think people. What do you mean, Jay? Create creators. So let me clarify that one first. Then we'll go to the whole road race thing, because there's a real mechanic to this that like people can use. So the create creators thing, a lot of content that a lot of brands create ends up commodified, where it's like if I'm reading it, I'd be like, okay, this is decently helpful, right? But I could have also landed on someone else's blog just as soon, right? So like I have to
also use
again.
AI and make a copy on your
or
own
that,
website
right?
in
Where
seconds.
it's like, I'm not saying there's no value. I'm not saying that the things people are putting out, with good intention has no value. A commodity has value, but there's no way to charge a premium or get preferred over the rest. Like I just want that, whatever, those eggs, and it's hard to separate when you sell a commodity. So the idea of creating content is fairly ubiquitous, especially in the spaces that we roam in, Tim, which is, B2B, a lot of SaaS companies, or increasingly a lot of my entrepreneur clients or creator clients. Like everybody's creating advice content, right? So when you're an organization, everyone's saying, well, brands are media. And the last domino to fall, if that metaphor is true, is that media staff's creators, media staff's known personalities, or knows how to cultivate known personalities who have such advantages over a corporate blog, for example. And so I do think a lot of brands that just churn out a lot of sort of content that there's no person behind it, they're struggling to distribute that content now because they're showing up on social media with a brand account. LinkedIn is a good example, and they're not getting nearly the engagement that someone like you or I would get. And so we have to learn how to create creators. We have to learn how to create voices that can influence the market, because that's where trust is earned much quicker. So that is a little mini rant I've gone on periodically, where I see people frustrated for like they're shoving lots of content and gimmicks through their brand accounts. Meanwhile, like a person has a much easier time of it. Now, I don't think that is the panacea, nor even something most brands should consider, because they're not ready. I do, however, back to your other point, now this is that second thing to parse. There is like a distinct way to meet people where they're at and run that road race better with them and find your philosophy, which is you have to discuss internally with your team, this is the way we see it. This is what we're arguing for in the world. And a lot of people try to come up with one tagline or one very simple idea that just pops to mind, or they have a consultant create a very fancy deck that looks great but goes nowhere, right? We can distill this down to imagining you're having a dialogue with your audience. And there's certain beats that, to your point earlier, all your competitors are going to say it. There are certain things your audience is going to be asking people like you or brands like you that the audience or the competitor will say something similar. Then there's one question they're going to ask you in the buyer's journey that forces you to say something different than your competition. So if you'd like, we can go through this kind of prompting exercise, but it just looks like a dialogue with the audience. And you have to arrive at this point a few steps into the buyer's journey where they're asking something very important of you. And most brands are saying, because we make this simple, because it's about quality content. And I'm like, all your competitors would say that. That's not a differentiating message. So I'm happy to go through that exercise, but I did want to say there is real craft to this. It's not like just care about resonance. No, you have to create a distinct message and then package a point of view to real language that then your team can use as a marching order or as an alignment vehicle for all their content, all their marketing. This is not just like a plastered message that I like to spout on my website. It's a process you have to go through to find clarity. You can't just pick it. You got to build it.
Do you have examples of brands with this kind of philosophy and differentiation that you could
Yes.
name and
Yes.
quickly expand? One example is, I know Vistia. You're now working very closely with them to help
Yes,
them out.
I don't
with
mention
content.
them because I have a paid brand deal with them. So using them as an example to teach, I'm happy to do, but I have to disclose that
I'm still interested because
Okay,
you're
cool.
working
Okay,
that
cool.
closely with them.
Yes.
I imagine that you
Right.
help them to use your frameworks to polish their
Yes.
messaging, resonance, whatever. So
Yeah.
tell me more.
Yeah, so Wisty is an interesting case because they've been around so many years and they've kind of lived many different sub lives almost, buying back their investors and so forth. So if you were imagining Wistia's target market of, let's say, brand marketers investing in video, just to keep it simple, you're having a dialogue with the audience if you're Wistia. And that starts like a keynote is a really good proxy for all of your messaging. Like imagine walking up on stage if you're someone from Wistia. The audience is wondering the same thing in the crowd. The very first thing they're wondering is, how is this going to help me? Like, I don't know you, or maybe I do, but only lightly or vaguely. The first thing everyone wants to know is what's in it for me. And it's a mistake that a lot of people make where they leap to who they are, what they do, or all the reasons they think they need to start with to make sure you care. The most important first step for anyone is to make sure you align with your market. To your point earlier, can you put your finger on their reality and even their pain? That has to come first, where it's like, oh, I feel like you get me. You have permission to keep talking now. So let's say in the keynote that Wistia would give, you walk up onto a stage, whoever you are from that company, and the audience is wondering in their brains, and you have to meet them here. How is this going to help me? And you respond with, here's your goal. So Wistia might say, so you're out there trying to, this might be older Wistia too at this point because they have such a good brand now, but Wistia wants you to care more about putting your people on camera. They think they need to make marketing and business more human. That's their sort of big MO. And so the audience doesn't want to hear that first, even though Wistia wants to deliver that message. The audience wants to hear, how is this going to help me? And so you would say, if you're Wistia, so you're out there trying to both differentiate from your competitive set and drive sales quickly and at scale. Yeah, I am. By the way, anyone Wistia competes with, a webinar platform, video hosting and analytics, even like a general marketing all-in-one platform, like anybody in their competitive set, narrowly or broadly, would probably say the same thing. You know, for me and my work as a public speaking coach, I would say, you want people to pick you, stick with you, and refer you despite the options. That's it. We need to figure out what is the audience after. Here is your goal. And then they follow up in their head with, yeah, but aren't I trying to achieve that? And if you're Wistia, you're like, yes, you are. You're publishing tons of text content, maybe some graphics. You're doing all these advertising campaigns, trying to get your name out there, get your brand out there, get your products out there. And here's all these tactics that might follow from that. So here's your goal and here's the current approach. And now the audience feels seen. Now they're going, oh my gosh, you clearly understand me. I'm loving this. Why not keep doing it that way though? And that's the third question. And then if you're giving a keynote or designing a message, if you're Wistia, you say, well, here are all the problems with that. Text-based content has become highly commodified. A lot of times there's really no real like hook or differentiating factor. It's really hard to be a great writer. Increasingly, the web is breaking towards video and other formats and blah, 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 blah. They start to highlight all these problems with the way you're showing up, not on video. And then the audience goes, oh my God, I didn't see that. Thank you. Or if this is a real keynote, you know, they nudge their buddy and they're like, can we get Sam in to talk to our team? Because that's what I've been saying. Thank you. And then they follow up with the question that now we have to differentiate ourselves because we've gone from their goal to their approach to the problems with the approach. Their follow-up question fourth now is, so what could I do instead? I get it. I have a goal, an approach, and there's problems with my approach. I'm trying to achieve my goal and it's not working. Well, what else can I do? And into that void, Tim, has to go your premise. Here's how we see it. Like others sell similar tools, others give advice about showing up on camera, but here's how we see it, right? So Wistia might say, well, we need to make your team better on camera. And that's always been their bent. Unlike a lot of video platforms, they've always encouraged you and your team to show up on camera. And here's how to do that, and here's stories for that, and whatever. So Wistia has a distinct point of view that to be successful in marketing means this smaller shift. You know, stop hiding and start showing your quirks on camera, right? So stop doing this, start doing that is a very useful framing device for an audience to hear about like, stop the status quo, start embracing this. And then behind that, the audience is like, okay, I think I get it, or I really get it. Share with me how to do it. Here are some stories if you're Wistia. Here are some techniques. Here are some tactics, etc. And so what you do is if you're trying to sharpen your perspective into one codified premise, is you first attempt this exercise, which is, I need to create an argument for my perspective so others give a shit about what I say in the world or who I am. Because right now, I'm just sharing a lot of generic content. And there's no like underpinning point of view that informs all that content. So that's an example with Wistia.
I really enjoyed this example, and especially the phrase you said in the very beginning, where you said that kind of Wistia's mission is to put more people at your company behind the camera or something like that. Later,
in front of the camera. It's even
in front
scarier.
of the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Behind the camera, it's my lack of English speaking skills.
Oh, that's okay. That's right.
Anyway, you later reiterated to something like make people in your company like perform better on camera or something like that. But the thing is, so speaking of like philosophies, messages, and resonance, that message resonated with me a lot. Like put more people in your organization in front of the camera. You provided a framework of how to make the case, and you even said that you don't put this argument first, but you start from the pain people having, and then you lead to this point. I would argue if you tell me put more people in your organization in front of the camera first, I would get interested already, and then you can walk me through. But these are all minor details. What's interesting is that I loved this tagline so much that I went to the homepage of Wistia to see if they're using it. And their headline is "Do everything you want with video." Mm-hmm. Then your one-stop video marketing shop. Then do more with our integrations, webinars, but better. Yeah, so they're not kind of leaning into this message right on their homepage.
No, because you're not ready to hear that message. If you arrive at their homepage, you're not ready to hear it. In the same way you're not ready to hear all about resonance or being their favorite from me when you arrive to my homepage. I have to use language that fits the stage you're at. So if you're in that information gathering mode and maybe someone referred you to Wistia and you're like, oh, what are they about? You do want to lead with language that matches. What's missing in most brands is not the copy at the top of the website. That should be optimized for where they're at in their needs or understanding of you. What's missing is the lens that your team has through which they see everything. So like with Wistia as an example, just to continue that, if they believe that we need to put more people's teams, more executives need to put their teams on camera, or they're selling to a creator and you are trying to show up on camera more, maybe you're a newsletter writer and now you need video hosting and analytics. So how do you get Wistia into your world, right? If that's really their bent, and then they think, well, we have webinar features to sell, their product page should not lead with what I just said, but their initiatives should be informed by that. And so that leads them to think, okay, well, we want to sell webinars as a major feature set on Wistia. So we should educate people on how to create great webinars. And so we start working together, Wistia and I, creating a whole series called Host Better Webinars. And if I went to a Wistia competitor and said, hey, I'm all about public speaking and storytelling and, kind of the individual using their voice, I might get pushback from insert brand here because they'd go, I get it, Jay, but like we're selling to corporations. We're selling to B2B. We're selling to to teams. You're talking about the individual getting on camera. And then I think it feels like I'm taking crazy pills because like if that organization is hosting a webinar, they don't have like a plush version of their logo on camera. Somebody at some point from your organization has to open their dang mouth and grip you and teach you and move you, right? And so like, why wouldn't it be a really high friction discussion with an organization that doesn't see it the way Wistia sees it? So sometimes you see language like on my website, maybe below the fold. That's exactly what Jay said his premise is. But most times it's about aligning your choices and aligning your team. Like what is the premise of your organization, similar to the premise of a speech or a podcast, where you might say it here and there, but more to the point of trying to serve your audience and build a business and drive people to sale. It's how you align all of your actions and inform that. And so Wistia goes, oh, absolutely. We should do a whole dedicated series with Jay about hosting better webinars because that aligns with our belief. And we do see value in creating original resources and creating these expensive promo videos to fill those webinars, like doing things that like represent a real investment, not just in me, but in this belief they have that the person at your organization, or really the people, needs to go on camera. So the copywriting might show up, but more to the point, it's informing their choices. And then you encounter those choices and you're like, oh, this hits different. This feels like Wistia, not insert webinar competitor here.
There's a bit of an irony that Wistia wants to put more people in your organization in front of the camera, and then you, a person outside of their organization, is creating content for them.
It would be ironic if I was the first, but they've been showing up for years. Everybody on their team every day is in front of the camera. What they found was nobody on their team knows how to teach people to be better creators, to be better speakers. And so it's right in line, I think, with their mission, because while yes, I am not of the organization, they are walking the walk away from our series every day. And they also recognize that those people they hire are like pre-vetted to know Wistia, believe in the philosophy, care about video. They're quirky and fun. But the customers that Wistia has, only a small percent are similar. And so they bring in someone like me who has framework and technique and is used to teaching these kind of skills because they saw that on their staff. You know, that's why you do partnerships. You're like, oh, our powers combine to serve the same message.
Jay, I was just kidding here because
I understand, but I don't want to disparage my brand partner. Tim. Come on.
No. Wait, I do understand that there's a lot of value with partnering with other people, especially someone like you. I think you have a great personal brand.
You see how defensive I just got to be like, this is now like, this is a brand partner of mine. How dare you, Tim? How dare you?
Yeah, I just want to people listening, I just want to quickly explain that by partnering with someone who has like credibility, audience, personal brand, you're kind of feeding off of that brand by what's the psychological principle called guilt of association or something that when you guilt by association.
Yeah.
Well, in the good form, it's like respect by association. So
yeah,
whoever
like
is following
benefit.
you, Jay,
yeah.
whoever thinks that your content is good, that you know how to do these things, they would be, oh, Wistia is partnering with Jay. Then like I respect them more because I respect Jay. So there's clearly a reason to do that, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But speaking of creating content, your series with Wistia is an example of that. You had published an article about the content you're most bullish on creating in 2026, access and analysis content. So can you speak a little bit to what this means, and in a broader sense to our conversation about the content that's easy to copy, the content that is toothless, that like how do you make your content unique to you, and how do you make your content resonate? And I think your access and analysis content framework has something to do with that. Am I right?
Yeah, I think like I want to be careful because I definitely wrote that about my business, and I sell high ticket services. You know, I work with the individual executive or solo entrepreneur on their public platform and speaking.
Okay,
and
then let's make it useful for B2B brands and content marketers.
And I'd love your help translating that, because I didn't write this with those people in mind. So let me lay out the philosophy, and then you tell me if this would apply in your world.
Okay.
A good friend of mine, Andrew Davis, one of the best marketing speakers on planet Earth, I think, he once told me that a good storyteller, good speaker, good thought leader thinks I have a solution, not the solution. So I'm here to say that to you, Tim. I have a solution. I don't know how well it translates to the world of, venture-backed or even bootstrap SaaS, for example. So let's see what we can make of this. So the access and analysis is a type of content that is sort of downstream from this realization that I've had for many years as a storyteller, which is a very common phrase in storytelling: show, don't tell. So I could tell you to care about something, or I could show you myself going through that. Or I could tell you that this happened to me, or I could give you more descriptions and details and reflections. So show, don't tell is writing and storytelling centric advice that you get a lot. I think in 2026, again, I was thinking of service providers, most notably agencies, thought leaders, creators. I was talking to a friend of mine, Lee Odden, who runs Top Rank Marketing. And like, he's been a public CEO for a while, like public facing, not a public company. And he's now running an interview podcast. And we were talking about how interview podcasts I love. I've hosted something like 500 episodes in my career, and I love the craft of interviewing. It's hard to do well, but I love the craft. And I was like, even though I love it, Lee, I'm not sure if I should continue with it, because I'm thinking about my buyer's journey, my client's journey in this case. where I'm really good at evangelizing my ideas like at people from a stage, for example, or through my newsletter, through social media content. That's like one to many at you. And I'm really strong when people arrive to a sales call in converting those folks into a client. There's this gaping hole in the middle of their journey, though, where they want to see me move from like sharing ideas at you to absorb to like instead personalize my ideas in a way that feels like I'm on the application level now, right? I'm not broadcasting at you, but you're watching me coach somebody on their speech, for example, or you're on a round table over Zoom and I'm fielding questions about each person's business and kind of taking all the ideas you might be familiar with from me. And I'm trying to make sense of it and use those tools and techniques with this person's specifics versus that person's, right? Easy example, back to the keynotes. You give a great talk. What's the best question you get? Tim, that was amazing. Here are some specifics about my business. How would you recommend I go about using your ideas from that awesome talk in my specific situation? So access and analysis says, I'm going to give you access to how I really apply my ideas either to my work or even better to friends and prospects and clients. Filming a coaching call with their permission is an example of that. I add oftentimes a bonus call people can buy if they allow me to publish that call for content. That's access. You're accessing me in motion and I'm applying my ideas. You're watching me apply them. I'm not just evangelizing them at you. And analysis is what we've come to know as maybe reaction. Like, here's this speaker. It's Tim. He's an amazing voice in marketing. This is his latest speech. Let's watch and I'll react. You can get deeper though and start to actually apply your own thinking and tools and punch it up if they would agree to be with you live, or even if not, if you have a framework you can teach the audience while reacting, that's even better. Not just like, that was great, I wish he did this instead. So access and analysis to me was this middle of the funnel or middle of the buyer's journey gaping hole that a lot of experts have, where they need to see you're more than a soundbite machine, you're more than an advice giver. You can also work with them and do good work for either you in a free capacity or people like you. And now I'll go, oh, I trust Jay enough to move to a sales call, for example. So hopefully that explains it. I'd love your take and whether you see that applying in your world.
Yeah, I think you said something along the lines of show, not tell, as a quick sound bite to encapsulate what you were speaking to.
Yeah.
And I think we embraced that early at Ahrefs because I was teaching my content marketing team that whenever you're making an argument, whenever you're suggesting something, if you can go ahead and do it and actually add, so I went ahead and did it, and this is how it worked for me, that would make your content original by definition. You just make it, you just made it you, like you showed your results.
Yes.
And again, this is an argument that someone like I think Ryan Holiday was making along the lines of to be an interesting writer, you have to do interesting things in real life and go write about them. So too many people in the content marketing world see creating content as let me go read a bunch of stuff and then create my version of like what I learned or kind of curate the biggest thing of like pieces. While I see people who actually get traction and as you say, people who resonate, they would go read, they would go apply, and they would tell their story. Like I applied 10 most popular growth hacking tips for my business. One of them worked. Immediately, and you connect with the person because you see the person who was doing that and you're like, oh, this specific person did this and they got these results. And this is what you remember. Because if you would read 10 articles, 10 growth hacks for businesses, you don't care who they're coming from. HubSpot, Ahrefs, Wistia, it doesn't matter. Tell me what you did. Tell me what kind of results you get. So,
right.
I think we're on the same page in regards to this,
I think so too. Like to bring it home for people listening or watching, like I did a couple of public coaching calls with friends that roam in similar circles to us, like Brendan Hufford, who's a SaaS consultant, Melanie Diesel, who's a marketing consultant, and she's a speaker and an author. A couple folks, Brooke Sellis, wonderful marketing entrepreneur in the social media and social care space. So these folks were like, I'm out there giving speeches, Jay. And I was like, well, I'm testing this content for my business, this access and analysis content. I was probably going to give you advice for free anyway. Would you just film our call and we will re-engineer and rearrange, say, the opener or the story or whatever you're struggling with in a speech. And that's far better for somebody who's like, I love the way Jay describes storytelling. I'm thinking of hiring him. Then they see that, and that's like an accelerant in the funnel. And sure enough, and I'm not scientific about it, but I do get people referencing those videos where they're like, I was kind of almost, they weren't saying this word, but they were like, I was vetting you, Jay, and I saw your call with Brendan rearranging his opener, and I thought his draft was pretty good. And then you showed me how good it could be if you do this with real technique and rigor. Like, I really want to work with you for my speech, for example. And like that show process, it was so much more potent for the prospect here than me describing, here's the generic style of opener, here are some techniques to make it better. I mean, that's useful to have too, but it's way more useful to him, like you're saying, we're on the same page, to like, hey, we even if you sell a product, I sell this product. Who's a good example? I collaborated with Rand Fishkin over at SparkToro, and I was doing some things with speaking pitches in mind and podcast pitches in mind, and I was able to use SparkToro to research what I was doing and show my research versus say like, I'm Jay Acunzo and I endorse SparkToro and Rand Fishkin's great, isn't he? Like tell. No, one video showing, so much more powerful.
Let's talk about AI a little bit, because in the beginning of this conversation, we kind of threw it away like, AI, it's not going to get you anywhere.
AI.
I believe you're part Italian or something, right?
Oh, very many parts Italian.
Okay. So I loved your metaphor where you said AI is like a car and it has flashlights, and marketers like, oh, look, flashlights. You can use flashlights when you have a car standing in front of you.
Yeah.
So, AI is bad at creating content because it cannot do exactly what we just said. It cannot go and do stuff and tell about its first-hand experience. Or AI cannot have an opinion because by default it is a statistical model that aggregates everything and gives you like a bland, statistically average answer. It cannot stand for things really.
Right.
But AI is, you said it's a car. You said it's like it's a like very fascinating machine that you can use. Mm-hmm. How do you use AI, or how do people who are working on creating content, on creating messages, on creating resonance, where does AI fit in all of that?
I thank you for putting me on the spot with this analogy. So the really quick sum up is, if you invented the car and a bunch of people got excited about this amazing vehicle you invented for the flashlights on the front, to me, I'm thinking that's how people who really deeply understand AI are watching marketers right now. Because the most rinky-dink use case is like generating content. And so the misnomer of generative AI, I get it's not necessarily describing, when they named it, creating content. It's the generation of the language in front of you. But I believe, I don't know, I'm not an AI expert, but I think people have run with it as like, I can create content, or, and so the very many car-like things that it can do. I have subsets of my audience. And so I sell high-ticket one-on-one services and sort of mid-ticket cohorts. And an easy win for me is I am so close to how I explain things to people that I've trained AI separately. Here's my ideal one-on-one client, the executives and entrepreneurs out there that I serve. And then I've trained it in another chat. Here's a cohort that I like to, would like to attract to each public speaking accelerator that I run. And when I have something I'm writing with intentionality, for example, to attract one crowd or another, I'll run it through that ideal persona chat. Like very common, now established use case for AI, right? But I find that that's one tip, that's like the tip of the iceberg, where it's like, okay, synthesis and punch-ups or wrestling or finding holes has been profoundly useful. Not generation, not the genesis, but the synthesis. I'm always thinking about that. Like the genesis of an idea, the messy drafting has to come from me, because it's where I'm making sense of how I see it, how I explain it. It leads to creative breakthroughs that I wouldn't have found if I skipped the mess. And I really hate that people think that making a mess and feeling friction in the creative process is a problem with them. It's not. It's actually your idea refinery that you need to figure out what you think and how you say it. And then you can turn to a tool to punch it around, to bat it back and forth, to say, here's my ideal persona or audience or outcome or all of the above. And what did I miss? Or what would you change? Or where am I being redundant? Right? Because, brevity and I are having a lifelong battle and I'm losing. So it can shorten things for me. That's a better use case. But then away from content, I use it a lot to think about the crispness or the quickness, I should say, with which I can articulate like a framework. Because I'm not much of a visual framework designer or even like a systems thinker. But I know to teach and to inspire and to do my work, I got to get better at that. I'd much rather give you a wall of smarts and a story. And so as I try to model out frameworks, I'm trying to understand what would this make sense? What would this be interpreted as if I just publish this? Like, here's no context AI, but here's just a description of the framework. How do you see this, right? In my ideal persona chat. So I'm looking at all the ways I could show up and communicate. And I'm like, well, if it's the synthesis, then I can use AI. All the transcripts from my clientele and all the different like mountains and mountains of stuff plus framework. It's good at dealing with that stuff. Whereas I like to generate, I like to write, I like to create and think. And I'm not much of a like framework developer, but I got to be better at that. And that might mean the framework of a sales page, or it might mean like a visual 2x2 matrix or something. And so it helps me evolve from kind of only being able to communicate with people who like the way I communicate to having more well-rounded approaches to like, I need the analysis, I need the stories, I need the frameworks, I need the right sales copy. That's not a natural way I write. And now all of a sudden, like I am the originator and AI is sort of like holding me accountable or shaving off edges or asking me tough questions that I wouldn't otherwise see. So to me, to the metaphor, that's like a car. That's powerful stuff. I couldn't have done that as a solo entrepreneur otherwise, but I don't think me writing a blog post is the way to do it.
Let me try to explain what I just heard in my own words, and you tell me if I understood it correctly or not.
Yeah.
So in very simple terms, you kind of brain dump a lot of your ideas into AI, and you ask it like, help me structure it.
Yeah, like a good example is I have been circling this awful problem that I see from very established voices who want to pursue keynote speeches. They want to be on the main stage, not a breakout room. And every time my peers and I, who have done the professional speaking thing, encourage folks like that to invest in building a better talk. They're like, it's an 80% talk. It's fine. It's fine. I want to like get better at I need a speaker reel. I need to work with a speaker bureau, I guess, or, a sizzle reel, like showing my prowess on the stage in snappy form. They point to all the things that they think are like the business side of it. And so I'll like rant at AI and I'll say, I'm trying to solve this problem with this ideal persona in mind. Here is my best attempt. I am way too ranty and too close to it. What questions would this group of people I'm trying to write to have? And then I'll rewrite it and I'll say, okay, I need a central framework to visualize what I'm saying in this longer essay. And now that the draft is much better after a few revs, I'm considering a bullseye shape, right? And let me describe the bullseye to you. Again, where are there holes here or what doesn't make sense, given who I'm speaking to, the problem I'm solving, the drafts we've worked on, and also this visual. Where are the like final improvements here to like make it all snap into place? So it's really like a small percent like finish or push back on me or give me like a sharper way to say this or something like that. And then I tend to edit it anyway because I can't help myself. And I think it's better and maybe it is and maybe it's not. And I push it out. So I'm bringing the thinking. I'm bringing what would be a B+, I think, attempt. And I'm asking it not to write for me, but to point out problems in my writing.
Yeah, so in a sense, AI is a great kind of brainstorming and ideation partner where you can throw things at it and it would help you refine your thinking and find angles which you might not otherwise think about. But let me get it crystal clear with the applications of AI. Among all your clients that you work with, whether it's individuals or companies or whatnot, you're working on their content, on their messaging, do you see any successful cases of actually automating content with AI? For example, if someone gives a presentation, they take a recording, they feed it to AI and come up with 10 LinkedIn posts from my presentation, and they copy paste and just publish it on LinkedIn. Do you see anything like that? Kind of hands-off, generate stuff for me, even if you feed it some piece of content of yours?
Yeah, no. It could be my clientele. Like these are folks that like they see a direct line of sight from thought leadership to revenue. Maybe they're selling products, maybe they're selling services, but like they themselves are the public voice for, whether it's like I'm with a team here or I'm a soloist or anything in between. And so I think like part of it is just what they're good at or what they like doing. I think a lot of it, frankly, is, when I worked at Google and HubSpot, I was so enamored with like really good product managers. And there's like a really big lesson here for marketers in AI, I think. Like really good product managers and people I got close to in product, I always thought that they would like go to the market and kind of like ask what features that the customers wanted. And then they'd go back and build those features. But anyone who knows product knows, no, really good product managers would find the pain, figure out the pain and say like, what sucks about this task that you're doing anyway without our product? And they'd say, well, in the cases of doing this, like here's all the things that suck. And they go, okay, great. What have you tried to fix it already that's clearly not working because it still sucks? I've tried all these things. Great. I'll be back is kind of what they say. And they bring that back to their team. And their team has talent and taste and technique and rigor and something to say in a larger context and sales and revenue and all these things. And then they present to the market something that the market would not have known to ask for. Right. And so I kind of see that with thinking, with good, powerful, influential ideas that build businesses or spark movements. It's on you to just think about, okay, I'm going to use AI to understand, similar to how I described it, the problems, the pain, with the market, but also with this piece as it relates to the market, the problems of the piece to solve the problems of the market. Oh, okay, I got to solve the problem of the piece. Now it's a solution they read, right? So I think of it as less automating content, because then you're asking it to like produce thinking or at least synthesize my thinking into publishable posts, and much more about like being a product manager. I want to know the market intimately, and then I will go away with my taste and talent and maybe even my team and bring you something through, in this case, content, speaking, storytelling, whatever, that nobody else would have come up with, inclusive of a tool that's trained on internet content.
So I hear the answer is no, you haven't come across any cases of successful
No, but I want to be clear as to why. It's not that I don't think it's not that I don't think they exist. It's that I occupy a specific context. Like I don't want to be one of those guys on a podcast that's like sweeping generality. It must all be this, because that's no one's here for. You don't want that.
Jay, thanks a lot for the conversation. Thanks a lot for being a good sport and putting up with my pushbacks and curveballs. I think we ended up with quite an intellectually stimulating podcast episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as well.
I did. And thank you for taking this approach to the show, because we have enough of the generic podcasts out there. So I really appreciate what you're doing.